most people are seeing the news as it comes from, broadcast news or, what they see on social media. But how are you seeing the revelation of the Epstein files, and how's that being spun in the far right media ecosystem?
With great difficulty, because it really is an unspinnable kind of event. It's kind of it is a tragedy that has a human cost and a human face now for most of America. And even people inside the core of the MAGA movement want this information to come out. The only people that don't want it to come out are Donald Trump and the DOJ and his enablers. And as almost everyone has said, like, let the ball fall where it will. If Donald Trump's in the file, so be it. If Bill Clinton's in the file, so be it. Almost everyone really wants these victims of Epstein and Maxwell to have some modicum of justice, even if it's 20 years after. They would really like to see some people have to play by the same rules everyone else does. And so it has really divided the MAGA movement. It was really the first issue that fundamentally separated Trump from the MAGA movement, that really fundamentally broke that spell he had for decades now, well, over a decade now, over folks that really believed in him. And I think what happened, Cam, is that it was so clumsily covered up by the White House after promises and promises and promises. We're going to release everything. We're going to get it all out there. We're going to tell the story. And they never would and never did. And I think that break in the trust that the MAGA folks had with Trump, if it had come at another time, maybe different. But right now, we're in such an economic crisis and such a financial crisis in the country that is affecting his own most devoted followers the most. I think that's why we're ending up in a situation where people are really mad about this. They really want answers about it. And they're not going to put up with, shut up, go away. There's nothing to see here, move on.
Right. Well, and that's what I was curious about, because, I mean, broken promises are more or less a staple of the Trump administration and the Trump campaign. The border wall from his first term turned out to be a couple miles of very ineffective
fence. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I've been down there, and it's between the flash flooding and just the poor construction.
Wear and tear on a junky, badly built, lowest bidder fence. Yeah.
Yeah. But so what you're seeing is that because there are actual real world problems, like there are economic difficulties, people are feeling the strain that they thought Trump would alleviate, that
100%.
This is a very significant straw on the camel's back.
Yeah, they felt like that image that was burned into their minds by watching Trump on The Apprentice for 14 years. Master negotiator, wealthy businessman, would be above being bribed or corrupted in any way. And he would clean up the corrupt mess in DC. He would drain the swamp. All those things they thought were the reasons they were being harmed and the reasons they were being left behind economically. He instead gave them, blame those brown people. Oh, the Mexicans took your job. The immigrants took your job. Well, it really wasn't. I mean, more people have lost a job in this country because of McKinsey and private equity buying up companies and stripping them bare for parts than have ever lost a job to somebody who marched his ass up from Honduras or who came here from Sinaloa, crossing the desert at the risk of death to work as a home health care nurse or a gardener or a housekeeper. The damage that they were told was being caused by immigrants is now the only thing he seems to be focused on domestically, or zip tying kids in the streets. And when it comes to foreign folks, it's how much money can I make from them? And so his base is seeing a real divergence already, but the Epstein matter was so wired into their minds as a fundamental part of the MAGA conspiracy universe that when the administration said nothing to see here, moving on, it has done nothing but exacerbate that anxiety they have that powerful people get away with raping and harming young girls, which is what Epstein did. And they wonder why Trump is hiding it. And it's if I were advising Donald Trump, that's not a world that exists, but if I were advising Donald Trump,
hopefully he's not watching.
Yeah. Um, eh, I would tell him, you can't solve a crisis like this by covering it up. It is out, and nothing ever gets better. You're hiding the body under the porch and hoping it doesn't stink. It's going to stink. No experience with that directly, but I've heard.
Well, so they say. I mean, the it's always the cover up more so than the
Yes.
actual act. And it's something where, unlike previous attempts to just push past and tell people to ignore it, I mean, this is Democratic hoax part 12. um,
Right. Hoax of the
it
week.
Yeah, exactly. It's something that taps into old, QAnon conspiracies and taps
Absolutely.
into just a lot of core reasons why people decided to align themselves with the Trump administration in the first place. And I think one of the bigger differences that it took a lot of people by surprise is not just people online expressing frustration or saying that they don't like what Trump's doing with the Epstein files, but Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene. She's not only broken up with him, for lack of a better term, but she's leaving Congress.
Pretty good
And
term.
yeah. Um, Now, this is something that really surprised a lot of people. As
Yeah.
someone who follows this stuff very closely, were you taken by surprise? Did you see it coming? Is this an evolution?
Yeah, I actually did see it coming, and I'll tell you why. Because Marjorie Taylor Greene, and there are some others playing this game also if you watch them. Ted Cruz, Josh Hawley, um, a little bit of Tom Cotton to some degree. They are all starting to look at, what does the post-Trump MAGA terrain look like? Greene is not doing this out of the goodness of her heart. She's doing this because she's a fairly keen political instinct that this issue really matters with the MAGA base. Maybe enough of the MAGA base to win the presidency in 2028. This issue has a conspiracy axis relevance to those folks who really like conspiracies. And a lot of the MAGA base likes conspiracies, not because they're stupid or because they're crazy, but because there's a subset of folks in this country of, and I'm going to be very clinically say this, of medium to low educational attainment for whom conspiracies are packaged as an entertainment product, and they give them a sense of intellectual cohesion when it comes to super complicated things where the motivations of people are hard to discern. They don't always understand why the elites do things a certain way, but if it's, oh, because they're all part of a club that's, that is involved with child pedophilia and cannibalism, that must be why they all behave this way. Unifying theories for conspiracies. I mean, look, the unifying conspiracy theory is the Jews are evil and they did everything. That's why you still see it out there with Nick Fuentes and these crazy, right, hyper right Nazi types. But this is a conspiracy theory in the Epstein matter that is actually was not a conspiracy. It was a real thing. So I think Greene is maneuvering herself to take that lane of saying, if you elect me president in 2028, I will be I will be the one who actually destroys the elites who get away with murder and get away with everything. I will be the one who holds them to account. Trump couldn't get there. He was corrupted by them. I think that's where she's headed. Um, but it's a mistake to underestimate Marjorie Taylor Greene. She is in many ways like Trump. Trump is not an intellectual, and neither is Marjorie Taylor Greene. But Trump has a feral cunning, a sense of where the base's gut is. And I think she has that same sense. And so I think you are seeing part of this MAGA crack up that's occurring. It is the movement is breaking up. And
Yeah.
Trump has been the glue that held them together, Tim, for so long, but it is breaking up. It there were a couple of weird things that have caused this catalyst you didn't think were the catalyst. Um, the first one was the Epstein cover up. Obviously, that has been a
Yeah.
profound shock to their system. The second thing that really got a lot of them, we saw this in the polling, his numbers crashed dramatically after he tore down the East Wing. And I don't know, I have theories of why, but I don't have a provable set of data as to why, but something about that and the callousness of it and the contrast of him putting up all the gold gewgaws and gradu all over the White House. There's a Southern word for you, gradu. Um, for some reason, really broke a lot of them off. They're like, this is the crazy stuff. This is not what I wanted. They want the tax cuts, the deregulation, the Project 2025 stuff. They like all that sort of transgressiveness. They didn't like tearing down the East Wing, and they really didn't like Epstein.
Yeah. No, the Epstein, everything that's it's the fallout from Epstein is larger than I would have expected, but also predictable. The East Wing, I was honestly a little surprised there was so much universal anger about, just because it,
Yeah.
I mean, if you're getting rid of waste, fraud, and abuse and looking for efficiencies, a bigger building to hold more people, I guess you could justify that. But I
What it gave them though was the sense, and I think because it also came along with all the gold leaf and turning the White House into Versailles, I think the economic pressure that's on so many Americans right now merged with that, merged with Epstein, the sense he's covering up for the powerful and covering up for the wealthy and covering up for elite members of society who are, I mean, they're not wrong in believing that they're largely above accountability.
yes, I mean, so far they have been. And I think you're absolutely right. I think the contrast of seeing a historic building being torn down with the promise that 250 million, then 300 million, $50 million, and then an unknown amount is going to be
Right.
spent building it while people don't are late on rent and can't pay
Yeah,
for groceries.
and folks were starving from getting SNAP
Right.
cut off. Yeah. Good
Right.
look.
Yeah. Go figure.
Right? How'd that happen?
Yeah. And I think it's also one of the points you brought up is that Trump is the glue, but a very seasonal glue. When he's not directly on the ballot,
Correct.
his movement suffers. And so,
Absolutely.
I'm curious as to, I mean, Marjorie Taylor Greene, maybe she's an opportunist. I think to an extent she's also one of the types of people where now that it's happening to me, it's a problem. With her kids' healthcare and actually
Oh,
receiving
yeah.
her own death
Suddenly
threats.
she's very concerned about death threats.
Right, right,
You
right.
know, when this is an administration that has, since its first campaign in 2015, used the internet to harass and torture and have people threatened, and they never have their hands dirty on it. But,
Right.
when the mob knows what the dear leader wants, the dear leader doesn't have to send the KGB to the house. They just
Yeah.
send the mob. And so, and look, I've gone through death threats for a decade. So I don't want anybody to have death threats. I don't want Marjorie Taylor Greene to get death threats. I don't want her to get swatted because I've been swatted. I don't want her to feel like our politics are infused with violence. But she was okay with it a couple weeks ago.
It,
She
it,
wasn't
it,
out there saying, "Hey, by the way, we should never have stormed the US Capitol and beat the hell out of Capitol cops." A couple weeks ago, that was great. That was all fine. That was a tourist visit. Now, so I do think there's a reason um, why people are expressing some skepticism about her. I would actually, I've said this a couple times now. I would love to have her on my podcast. I would have a respectful discussion with her because I am genuinely curious about the transition in her mind and her soul of what's happening right now in this world that she jumped at this moment.
yeah.
She
Well,
could have easily just dialed it in for another year, waited around for another year in Congress without causing a big fuss, yes or no, been a backbencher essentially, stopped doing the Marge Act, but just, been a vote for the movement, but she didn't. I'm very curious about it.
yeah. Well, I mean, and if you're running for higher office, that's still a massive platform you're giving up. The ability to vote and
Oh,
have those
100%. That's a
resources.
really good point, Cameron. That 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 if she is going to run for president, it would be something that would be almost unthinkable to give up that amount of leverage.
Right. Yeah. It just, I mean, you see people blatantly use that in corrupt ways, and it's
Sure.
just a huge a huge platform.
Huge.
It's I'll be curious to see where she goes. I don't see her developing a coalition. Even if she
No.
apologized to David Hogg for the death threats that she caused against him. That's not going to suddenly get a bunch of Gen Z
No,
to
but
jump on
here's the thing
Green.
you should think about though. We live in an era of extremely tribal politics.
That's true.
And if you have a big Republican primary field with 15 people in it, she doesn't have to build a big coalition. She has to just
Yeah.
skate through a few primary wins and she's on the road. She doesn't have to go in and win Iowa with 50% of the vote. She could win it with maybe 15% of the vote. She doesn't have to win South Carolina with 50% of the vote. She can win it with probably, by that point, a winnow by 22% of the vote. If she becomes the Republican nominee, that tribalism is still going to exist. Now, it will not be as strong as Trump's tribalism, but that tribalism, where the Republicans in particular will say, and Democrats, God bless them, do not have this. They do not have this view of like, that's my guy, that's my girl, I'm going to stick with them. Republicans do that. And you will find like all the gentry Republicans who are the country club types, they'll say, well, I don't agree with Marjorie's tweets, but the tax cuts she's promising really are appealing to the business community.
I'm
That's
sure
what'll
we'll see
happen.
some amazing Wall Street Journal op-eds.
Oh, yeah. While we have disagreements with Mrs. Greene, we do find that her plan to eliminate taxes on AI or whatever it is, that she will always, whoever wins the Republican primary has a very strong possibility of winning the general election because of the cohesiveness of the coalition,
Yeah.
even after Trump. And it's something Democrats have to really work on because Republicans, they have to win a slight base plus election. They have to pull their base in and just a little bit over that. Democrats have to win a base plus election. They have to pull in their base and win a bunch of people in the middle and some on the right,
Yeah.
which is the entire reason we performed the Lincoln Project, was to pull in voters from the center right, and we did it twice. And we pulled in, ironically, we brought in more center right voters in 2024 than we did in 2020.
Oh, wow.
But the Harris campaign had collapses with groups we weren't talking to: young African American and Hispanic men, young or men 18 to 40, the podcast audience, demo. The whole thing, like I said, the Democrats have to get base plus. They have to do better. They have to do a better job than Republicans to win the presidency just because of the way the Electoral College is stacked out.
Right. Uh, and I mean, there's going to be countless speculation from now to 2028 on how that's going to shake out
Yeah.
and what that we probably don't even know what that map's going to look like.
No.
Yeah, but in the more immediate future, we have midterms coming up. There's now rumblings of other Republicans resigning.
If folks haven't read Jake Sherman's piece in Punchbowl today, and Jake Sherman is, in my mind, probably the very best congressional reporter working on the Hill today.
Yeah, great.
Really tied in, really knows his stuff. Folks, he's got a piece out today talking about how badly Republican House members in particular feel they've been treated by the White House. And he says there will be more surprising big ticket resignations from the House. Never a good sign.
No, no. But it's also bringing up more speculate. Will there be enough resignations to change the majority? I don't see Green's seat going to a Democrat, but
No, it's an R plus 26 seat or something like that. It's a real tough lift. But what happens when you do this, when you see this sort of behavior, and we saw it happening with Democrats in 2010, bunch of resignations because they looked at the polling at about this time in 2010 and said, "Ew, this isn't good."
yeah,
You saw a bunch of Republicans in 2006 when we were in a bad economic situation. The crash hadn't even happened yet, but the economy was bad and the war was very unpopular. You saw a bunch of Republicans like, I believe I'm going to go spend more time with my children and my boat.
right.
you know, so if you end up, what you end up doing is those Republican seats that were safe become vulnerable just because there's some mechanisms inside the Republican primary system now that are not great for Republicans running in 26. The Republican primary system is meant to promote and select the most MAGA of the MAGA candidates.
Right.
It's the guy with the biggest Trump tattoo on his back. It's the guy who's like, yes, I will sell my children for Trump. It's the craziness level that selects for Republican primary winners. This is not a year where those people are the folks that voters are looking for. We saw it in Virginia, we saw it in Florida, we saw it in Pennsylvania, we saw it in New Jersey, where Republican voters were it's about 10% of Republicans crossed over to the Democrats, which is a high number.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. No, and I mean, I think that coupled with, the states where they've redistricted to spread Republican majorities even thinner.
well, Texas really screwed up on that one, though.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
they, they got thrown out in court, and now California has the chance to put 7 more Democratic seats on the board.
It's,
Effing around, finding out.
right. Right. It's, after a decade plus of Project Red Map building these maps, seeing them
Oh,
get
yeah.
destroyed. I think a large part because of a brain drain and substituting Trump loyalists with people who can actually plan for the future.
Oh, yeah.
It's not my problem.
Right? Well, I'm like, you guys go do you.
Yeah. Yeah.
The rest of us who like a democratic system and a constitutional republic, we're going to do the other thing.
Yeah, we're gonna keep up where we're at. Rick, I know we started late.
Wait, I've got a little while longer. I've got some more time. We can keep going if you want to.
Okay, excellent, great. Good. I mean, I could sit and chat all day.
Well, I got Katie Tur at 3:00, but other than that,
all right. So I got you for a little bit. I mean,
yeah, let's
she's
go a
welcome to
little
join
longer.
next time. But I'd like to look a little bit at what other emerging talents, for lack of a better term, within Republicanism, because if Trump is the glue that holds MAGA together, and he is losing that staying power, whether by age or other related symptoms, or just because of the Epstein revelations, is it someone like him? Is it someone who's flying under the radar right now? What are you seeing?
This is the great and pendant question of our time. This is the moment where we don't know the answer yet. And I will tell you, there's a big movement in the Silicon Valley folks, the private equity folks, the Wall Street folks, that they're trying to position JD Vance. They're trying to line up the money well ahead of time so that when Trump steps out of this mortal coil, they can immediately say JD has $1 billion of commitments already and scare everybody else out of the race. It
Right.
will not work. It will not work. This is a moment where we're going to see the Hunger Games of MAGA. We're going to see everybody who's got ambition, and that includes JD Vance and Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Tom Cotton and a dozen other people out there that none of us have even thought would jump in the race. Ron DeSantis still wants to be president. God knows how. Glenn Youngkin wants to run for president.
Right.
There are many, 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 many Republicans who think that they can be the next Trump. There are really meaningful problems with being the next Trump. Trump is sui generis in a couple of ways. One, none of these guys was on The Apprentice for 14 years, burning into the most popular reality TV show other than the Kardashians during that time, burning into the minds of Americans a false but powerful image.
Yeah.
He's a businessman. He's a leader. He's a negotiator, all those things. And believe me, in 2015, when we started trying to figure out a way to beat him, we did a series of 32 focus groups in 16 cities. It burned me out of doing focus groups, for one thing, because I realized people were just idiots about dug in things, and they weren't really caught talking. They were just trying to slap the other people around.
Yeah.
Everybody in those focus groups was like, no, Trump's the richest man in the world. Trump's a trillionaire. Trump owns One woman, I never forget it in my life. She looked across the table at the moderator and said, "You don't understand. Trump owns every building in Manhattan." And I texted the moderator. I'm like, "Would you correct that? He owns two buildings, has a partnership in one, and is a minority partner in a fourth." And she's like, "No, that's a lie." And so then I tried another one, like, "Would you tell her that, find out what she thinks that Trump went bankrupt 6 times?" "No, that's a lie." And this is in 2015, and this woman says the media is making it up to hurt Trump
Wow.
because he's like us. And I realized at that moment, no way, there was no way Hillary was going to win that race. I realized right then,
Really?
and it gutted me. It was a terrible experience. I walked out of the focus group, and I remember I was standing outside. It was just outside of Denver, and I was standing outside, and I took a deep breath. It was a cold night. I took a deep breath. I was looking up at the sky. I'm like, we are so boned. They believe something about him because they saw it on TV for 14 years, and nobody can run enough advertising to change people's minds in the next 10 months.
Right.
And it was a real, real moment. So Trump is sui generis. He is a unique character. He was also kind of that like low wattage celebrity thing in people's minds as well. He
And it was also a
also,
Hunger Games situation in 16 too.
yeah, right. He also faced a big field of what everybody said was the greatest Republican field of all time, but they were also all people that were normies. And
Right.
the Republican base has been fed on this slop from Fox and talk radio and social media for well the overall slop they've been fed. I'm literally writing a book about this. So um it's called The Hate Machine, available September 2026. Um
I'll keep an eye out.
but they've been fed this brew for since I was born. The right wing, the anti-media stuff in the right wing started around the time I was born in 1963. And they were like they were so committed to the bit that they built this culture around not trusting the media, not believing in anybody who was in elected office, not believing in science, all those things. That's longer than just the Trump era.
Yeah.
And none of these people that are running now will be running in 28. Let me rephrase that. Some of them are running now, but they're not announcing it. They've all lived in that for their whole lives. And none of them are exceptional at communicating some new derivation of that. None of them are exceptional at saying, yes, Trump told you the fake news was bad, but I'll show you what how bad they are. None of them are really, none of them can walk in and have that same level of mendacious confidence. JD Vance is a guy who went to Ivy League schools. He worked for hedge funds. He's not exactly salt of the earth anymore. Um, and all of them that want to do this, there is no more powerful drug than ambition to be president. It's
Right.
the addiction that is never cured once you have it. And there's a great, great book by Richard Ben Kramer, published in 1987, called What It Takes. It is a biography of people who run for president in that time frame. So names like Bob Dole and my old boss George Herbert Walker Bush, and all these other people. And it's a bigger history of that, but there is nothing more powerful than the ambition to be president. When there is an opening, when there is a moment where everyone says, okay, the world is going to change, the old regime is gone, here we go. You get these gigantic campaign fields. You get these, a dozen or more or less serious candidates. And we will see so many people jump into that, and they will have a hard time imitating Trump. By the way, I think at least one of the Trump sons will run for president. Eric
Oh,
or
great.
Eric or Don Jr. will run for president for one simple reason. They've never had a better business model than ripping off the American taxpayer.
Yeah,
I mean,
they've
it is a superb business model on their part.
yeah,
So, we're going to see a very big field, a very ugly field, and MAGA is really into purity tests among its people. Are you
for the most
enough with
part,
Trump?
yeah.
Do you love him enough? Are you always with him? Have you ever questioned him? And so, people like Marco are never going to get away from that old video of him, making jokes about Donald Trump's hands, e.g.,
Right.
something else. Um, so, we're gonna have a very big, messy primary, but I don't think MAGA as a movement is sustainable, given that the people who are actually paying for it, the Silicon Valley guys, the private equity guys, Wall Street folks, the money, they want to simply extract as much as they can out of the American taxpayer.
Yeah.
They want no regulations. They want no taxes on themselves. They want a quick free ride because they believe there's going to be this transition moment with AI. That transition moment is going to entail 100 million Americans losing their jobs, white
Right.
collar Americans too. And that's where the base of MAGA, I think, has a enormous fracture coming. MAGA is a working class coalition on paper, but it's also really a management class. It's gray and white collar jobs as well. And so when those things start getting blown out by AI, which Trump has been all in on,
Yeah.
I think there's a real interesting moment for Democrats to say, no, let's fix this. We'll see what happens. It's gonna, Democrats have an infinite capacity to fumble the ball, but hopefully, we'll do better.
uh, you know, it feels like a lifetime away, but I feel like it's also just around the corner.
Yeah, it's
Um,
about 5 minutes from now.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Hey, Get,
and
get, get some rest now, folks. It's almost here.
yeah. I mean, if the last 10 years have felt like 100, then we'll be here in no time.
Yeah, in dog years. All right.
Well, Rick, thank you so much for taking
Delighted
time
to
to
be
sit and
with you,
talk.
man. Absolutely. Absolutely. Really, really enjoyed it. And let's get together again soon.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I'll be bugging you in the near future.
All right, man. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate
Yep.
everybody tuning in today.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, guys. We'll talk to you
All
later.
right. See you, folks.